beloved Canadian land.
Who's that?
That's Scott. He's a dick.
Aha! Americans! I should have known. You think you're the police of the world. You think you own Canada. Well, you aren't welcome here. Get out now!
Oh, no, you don't, Scott. Leave these boys alone.
This isn't over, you American scum. I swear to God, you'll rue this day. God, what a day.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Hey gang, what's up? Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. This Canadian election is such a farce. We've got Melanie Joly here, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, acting all butthurt by Donald Trump and his tariffs. Like, we had issues in Canada long before Donald Trump and these tariffs aren't the biggest problem our country is facing. Not even close. It's our federal government. Anyhow, we're going to take a look at Melanie Joly acting all butthurt. My goodness. We're going to look at these polls. I've got a poll to show. What? Here's one for you, Nick Nanos. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's take a peek at Melanie Joly. Then we'll get into Nick Nanos and his bullshit polls. And then my real poll. Let's kick it off. Melanie Joly, get going.
Sorry. Thank you. That's all the time we had for this morning. Merci, c'est tout le temps que nous avions pour la conférence de presse ce matin.
All of us go to Florida. We don't.
Let's go to Florida, baby.
Have destabilized the world. And how do you think European partners should respond?
So the goal of the president is to do a global reset on trade. And Canada has been dealing with this now for more than 90 days. We're the biggest client of the US by far. We buy more from the US than the UK, France, China, and Japan combined. So for anybody that has been in business before, when you treat your client, your best client, the way we've been treated, well, of course, it means that you want fundamentally to change the way you're operating. So in that sense, in Canada, what we've said is we take stock of what the US has done, and at the same time, we know that the relationship will never be the same again. And that's my message to Europeans. The relationship with the US will never be the same. They want to do things differently, and we understand that. And that's why we will seek to make sure that we get to an agreement on trade, but also on security, because both cannot be siloed. At the same time, what we've said is we understand that President Trump is taking decisions for his own administration and his own people, but he also respects strength. And we've made sure that there were counter tariffs on American products back in Canada. We are now at $60 billion worth of counter tariffs. We announced new counter tariffs on auto yesterday because we think that it is ultimately the best way to get to a good deal eventually. We're putting maximum pressure on the Trump administration, and at the same time, we are finding off-ramps. And the only people on earth that will be able to really have President Trump change course are the Americans themselves. And the Americans now understand that tariffs are a tax on them. And we need to make sure, and Europeans need to make sure, that they take that message to the American people in order to influence the US administration. We're willing to partner with the Europeans on that very issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello. So Melanie Joly is an absolute twit. Like, does anybody else feel the same thing? Like, she kind of seems like a nice person, but very dishonest, right? Like, weird. The spoiled kid that got into...
She got into drugs, too.
We're going to look at another idiot on here, Nick Nanos. He does these polls, and these polls are bullshit, guys. I've got a poll, and I'm going to show it. What? Yeah, I'm going to show my poll. And it has something to say about these other polls. Anyways, let's listen to Nick Nanos, I guess. Like, do you believe these polls? I personally do not. Again, we'll get into a poll that really shows, I believe, how Canadians are feeling. Like, gives a better sense than whatever Nick Nanos is selling here.
And Nick Nanos joins us now to help break down the numbers. He's the founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research. Nick, good morning. How are you?
Good, Roger. How you doing?
I can't complain. Let's talk about the overall numbers. The Liberals still leading, but the Conservatives have managed to close the gap a little.
Yeah, it's interesting, Roger. You know, in the latest CTV News Globe and Mail Nanos tracking, we have the Liberals at 43%, the Conservatives at 37%, only a 6-point margin between those two parties. The interesting thing, Roger, is that what we're seeing is that when Donald Trump is in the news and Mark Carney is responding to Donald Trump, it's like the Liberal advantage increases. We haven't, and that's what we saw last week. Now that for the last few nights, Donald Trump has not been in the news, what we're seeing is that margin, the margin which the Liberal advantage was as high as 11%, is now 6%. And, you know, that's good news for Pierre Poilievre, but it also tells us really the influence that Donald Trump has on the shape of the ballot race between the two frontrunners.
Which will make it interesting over the last few weeks of the campaign then, as people try to make up their minds on who they're going to vote for.
Yeah, and you know, what's interesting is that movement in the last few days has been in Quebec from the Liberals to the Bloc, and in Ontario from the Liberals to the Conservatives. So there are different things happening in different parts of the country. Maybe the key takeaway here is that we take Donald Trump out of the equation and the playing field becomes much more level between the two frontrunners, Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney.
Okay, so it is going to be interesting, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you know, and in another survey that we released, we asked Canadians when they were going to make their final voting decisions. And I think for some people, it'd be quite interesting. About 1 out of every 5 or 20% of Canadians said that they'll make their final vote decision in the last 72 hours. This is kind of like 72 hours. It's kind of like last minute holiday shopping, I guess, right?
Well, it just shows you the dilemma many people are facing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, they might support one of the parties or they might like some of the leaders, but you know, if 1 out of every 5 Canadians are waiting till the very, very end, the last 72 hours to make their final vote decision, that means, you know, yes, one party might be leading today, but the reality is that it is fragile right across the board as Canadians wait to judge all of the federal parties and the federal party leaders.
Okay, and let's talk about those leaders. What are those numbers looking like right now?
Still a significant advantage for Mark Carney when we ask Canadians who they would prefer as prime minister. He gets a tip of the hat of around 50% or thereabouts, followed by Pierre Poilievre at 31%, and Jagmeet Singh 3.8%. Like, yikes! Like, he's way trailing his party. You know, just think the New Democrats are at 8% in ballot support. He's at 4% in terms of on the leadership front. But you know what this really says is that the Liberal fortunes are not right now, and them doing better is really not about the Liberal Party. It's not about the last 10 years. It's about what Mark Carney brings to the Liberals in terms of being different than Justin Trudeau.
Okay. Nick, thank you as always, sir.
All right, gang. So I have this poll right here where there's been 1,500 people that have voted. I didn't promote this. I just put it out there. But 98% of people say they're going to vote Conservative. 1% are still undecided. So there's a percentage that is lost in there that would be people that are voting Liberal. Anyhow, so when I see a poll by Nick Nanos saying the Liberals are going to win a majority, whatever, I figure that it's bullshit. There's no way. Like, there's no possibility. However, on the light side, I see strong numbers for the Liberals in the polls. That doesn't bother me much because at least those Liberals won't be feeling any urgency to get out there and vote, which people that are looking for change will be voting. And they won't be voting Liberal or NDP or Green Party or Bloc. People that want change are looking Conservative. I'm not a Conservative, but we'll be voting that way because our country needs change. Simple as that. Anyways, I wanted to point out this poll. Makes me just realize the other polls you cannot trust.
Will there always be a Canada? There will always be a Canada. All right, elbows up. Elbows up.
And here it is. Oh, he gets him right in the jaw. Right in the jaw.
we're not wrapping up the video. There's a bunch left to come. We've got one video that really stands out about Melanie Joly. I want to show that. Thank you all for watching to this point. Do you trust Canadian polls? Do you have any faith in Nick Nanos? I don't know. My name's Aaron, Canadian Looney. Let's get into this other video. Appreciate you watching to this point. Like, share, subscribe, all those fun things. Leave a comment. Love the comments. Come and join one of the live shows. Anyways, Melanie Joly, one to watch. She's dangerous, guys.
Oh yeah, baby. Let's go to Peru.
Bonjour tout le monde. Allô, allô. Enjoying beautiful Peru, and that you're not too tired. So you have enough now.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Trudeau, Melanie Joly, his side piece, Minister of Affairs, have gone down to Peru. They've dragged the mule Mary Ng with them to help carry back more keys of blow for the Christmas holidays. That's what they're up to down there. They're disguising it with a couple of press conferences, but I assure you, they're down there just getting the good stuff for the Christmas holidays. Anyhow, we're going to discuss this. They all are doing press conferences down there, and it's embarrassing to watch. Whoa. Use a clutch much? Yeah, so Melanie Joly is Trudeau's girl, his side piece, his Minister of Affairs, Global Affairs, Extramarital Affairs, whatever. Like, such a mess. They're not fooling Canadians much anymore. They're doing all they can to put off the next election. Once we get one, we won't have to discuss these folks any further. I don't know what'll happen to the channel then, but we'll worry about that then. Canadians need an election, and we need one soon. Let's take a look. Melanie Joly is giving advice to other countries, so she says. Can't take her at her word. I mean, blow queen like that, you gotta watch out. But she's saying other countries are coming and asking her for advice on how to deal with the President-elect Donald Trump and when his administration comes into power in January. Like Melanie Joly knows how to deal with Trump. Lord. These times in Canadian federal politics are hysterical, gang.
Hello guys, good to see you. Bonjour tout le monde. Allô, allô. So I hope you're enjoying beautiful Peru and that you're not too tired. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm happy to see you. Second, okay, we'll continue. Second, I was just in Chile. I had good conversations with my counterpart, met many ministers, and signed an important MOU, an important agreement, because as Canada has been facing wildfires, Chile has been and is right now facing wildfires. And so we got to an agreement with Chile to be able to send Canadian firefighters to help them, and meanwhile make sure that Chilean firefighters can come to Canada. They've done so. 62 of them were in Alberta fighting our wildfires recently, but we just wanted to make sure that that was formal cooperation. And I know that's important to Canadians, and it's important to Chileans. And I met also with families that lost their homes because of wildfires in Chile. And so we're also helping them go through the mental distress of having to deal with wildfire. So this is just an example of the work that I did in Chile.
Now she's a wildfire specialist, figuring out the problems of the world.
Now, Cpac. So we arrived yesterday, and I've had many meetings, but the two ones I wanted to highlight was first a meeting with Secretary Blinken, We talked about several issues. The first one on the bilateral side is we have already signed an agreement and got to an agreement on the Columbia River Treaty because we think it's important that Canada and US are able to have a clear agreement on water management on the West Coast. We got to an agreement back in June, and now it needs to pass Congress, so we'll be working on that together. We also talked a lot about Haiti, about what is happening in Ukraine and the involvement of DPRK troops in Ukraine, and we also talked about the Middle East. And this morning I just met with my Chinese counterpart. The goal when it comes to a relationship to China is that, of course, we'll always defend Canada's interests, but we need to have a predictable relationship. And that's my job. And so that's why I was engaging with Wang Yi, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, following my visit in Beijing. And so, of course, I raised achievements we were able to work on, which is a recent air transport agreement with China and also cooperation to combat fentanyl, and at the same time raised foreign interference and also the public inquiry linked to foreign interference, sending clear messages to China that we will never accept any foreign interference, and we talked also about Haiti, Ukraine, DPRK, as well as the Middle East.
Mary Ng is down there. She's the mule. She carries the weight. Little stocky frame like that, she's good to go.
So you have enough now.
Almost. Can
Go
I
ahead.
just ask you about the United States?
Yeah, of course.
You're meeting with Secretary Blinken, you're talking about deals and treaties and agreements and where do we go from here in the relationship, but the relationship seems to be so fundamentally changing in a few months. I wonder about you and maybe all the leaders here. How can we take any American representative of the Biden administration sort of at their word, given that it's going to be a very different administration in a month and a half, a couple of months?
So it is true that it will be a different administration. At the same time, President Biden is president until January 20th. And as all transfers and transition periods, there are lots of things that can be accomplished during that transition period. And so that's why when it comes, for example, to the Columbia River Treaty, we think that we can have bipartisan support to make it go through Congress. And so we'll work on that. That's a key objective because we already have a deal with the administration, but we think it's a win-win situation for both sides of the border. British Columbia is on board, First Nations are on board, and we know we have the support of key senators also on the American side. So I'm in, results-driven mode right now, and that's my key priority. Of course, on the geopolitical side, there are many things that are evolving so quickly, David, that we need to continue to engage and we need to be able to adapt.
She's got advice for the world, guys. She knows how to deal with Trump. The snowflake, blowflake, Melanie Joly. Snowflake or blowflake, Melanie? Which are ya? Old Melanie Joly, gang. What a clown.
Can you just repeat that last point?
Yeah, of course. So if there's a country in the world that understands the US, it's Canada. And so that's why there's so many delegations, so many countries that are coming to see us, to ask us about the new administration, to ask us about how we and they can adapt. And so I think that Canada's influence is actually increasing because of the impacts that the world is now facing with the new administration. So we will continue to engage, and we will continue, of course, to engage with the US, but we will increase also our engagements across the world based on that. And last point also is, let's all remember, Canada will be hosting the G7 next year. And so we also have an important role to play as the new administration is coming, but also the world is adapting to its, presence.
What was your reaction to Doug Ford saying that he wants to see he thinks Mexico may need to get cut out of a North American free trade deal?
I'm always happy to engage with Premier Ford. I know that many of my colleagues also from Ontario are doing so, but at the end of the day, what we want is predictability. We want to have a good free trade deal, and we want to have good jobs that are protected in Canada, and that's what we're doing. So for example, we've put 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. We think it's in our national interest. We also think that it's important for good jobs in Ontario, and we'll continue to do that. I won't speculate on the future of the negotiation. We have a deal, and the deal is good until 2026, and afterwards we will be ready to engage.
Can we ask you a question about India, please? CTV News is reporting that an Indian terrorist on their list has been arrested and charged in a shooting in Ontario. And there are reports that the Indian government actually reached out to Canadian officials about this man, about his presence in Canada, and asked for assistance. Is that the case in terms of what Canada did?
Okay, so first, I won't comment any ongoing investigation, and we will continue to engage with Indian diplomats if there are any inquiries regarding this issue. I don't have specific information about what you're referring to, but we will continue to have conversations at the foreign ministry level on, first, violence that can happen in Canada, and making sure ultimately that we're able to find a path forward. And I've been also in contact with the Foreign Minister of India.
It's going to be a wonderful time in the House of Commons once they get back all zipped up.
So, of course, we will work on the G7 preparation. We have a G7 Sherpa. She's been in contact with all the other G7 Sherpas. And yes, indeed, in 2025, Canada will be hosting the G7. And indeed, President-elect Trump will be coming to Canada like he did last time. And so that's normal course of business.
When other countries ask you about the United States, about the Trump administration, and Canada being a bit of an expert on that, what do you tell them when they ask you what's going to be the difference between the second Trump administration and the first?
I think that, of course, the existing Trump administration has a lot of experience, but which is different when they were first elected in 2016, because, of course, President Trump won and at the time had to adapt to being now a politician and president. I think that a lot of things have changed since 2016 and their 2016 to 2020. First, it was before the pandemic. Second, it was before the Ukraine war. Third, it was before the Middle East war. And fourth, China has taken clear geopolitical stance that are very different where we were. And so I think people have a tendency to think that the world was pretty much similar, which is not the case. And so based on that, I think people are able to see the trends of the future administration.
It's okay. Thank you. No, we gotta go. Sorry, no, we gotta go. The Indonesian free trade agreement. How much is the impending new presidency focusing the mind?
Melanie Joly and Justin Trudeau, they need to bring back so much blow for the Christmas holidays. And Peru has some good product. They used to be a huge producer of cocaine until the balloon effect took place. Anyhow, they still make good stuff down there, they say. Melanie Joly and Justin Trudeau to bring back their big bags of blow for the Christmas holidays? I'm pretty suspicious. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching this one. Catch you next time. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.